right, guys, so now we're going to be diving into the next part of the video, which is a mid-season review. We're going to be kind of breaking down all the different position groups, giving them grades, as well as talking about key points of the season, some of the highest of highs, some of the lowest of lows, just all in all, just dissecting what the 2020 season has been for the Texas Longhorns. But first, we're going to go into grading. So our first person and position group that we're grading is the quarterback position. Sam Ehlinger. Currently, we decided to give him a C+. That might seem a little bit harsh considering how well he started out this season. I mean, he looked great against UTEP. Even Texas Tech, he still looked really good. Like, I know both of us were still thinking he should be in the Heisman conversation at that point. But since the TCU game, something happened to where his deep ball just is not there at all. Just missing a lot of wide open targets. And for someone that we thought was going to really progress his senior year, he hasn't quite shown it. Has his heroic late game heroics been there for a lot of the season? Absolutely. I mean, he's the reason why we beat Tech. He's the reason why we came so close to Oklahoma in overtime. But you also can make the argument that he also was the reason why we lost to Oklahoma in the first place, because he missed so many key throws and that, to open receivers and stuff. So it's very give and take. We're giving him a passing grade with a C+, and again, that might be a tad harsh, but we can be harsh to a four-year senior that we had such high expectations for. And, it can be a number of factors. It's all kind of a mystery as to why he hasn't quite lived up to what we thought he was going to. Everything from receiving core to coaching to injury to what have you. But, yeah, C+ for Sam.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's just Sam has such a high standard that he set up for himself over the last 2 years. And, I mean, he still has like 22 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He still has pretty good numbers. But, his completion percentage has dropped like 7 or 8% since last year, which we did not expect at all.
No.
It's back to around where his freshman completion rate was at 57%. He's at 58% right now. So that's really disappointing. And, his QBRs also dropped about 7 points from last year. So, it's just Sam. We've talked about it enough. He's been good, but not what we expected. We expected him to be a lot better than what he is right now. So C+. I think that's a fair grade. Next up, we have Tom Herman. His midseason grade that we came up with is a D-. It would have been an F, but he did hire Chris Ash, and Chris Ash has been a good hire from what we've seen over the last month. So, Tom Herman, D-. Where to begin? We lost to TCU, the classic Tom Herman loss. And we just looked dysfunctional against a team that we're supposed to beat comfortably.
Right.
And, that was horrible. We lost to OU again. OU now officially owns Texas, Sam Ehlinger and Tom Herman. What are they, 1-4 against us? So
Yep.
That was a pivotal game for Tom Herman, and we laid an egg in it. We fought back at the end, but typical Tom Herman, Tom Herman. And then also the other important thing about Tom Herman is the recruiting, and recruiting is in the dump. We will get into that more at the end of the video, but recruiting's been horrible. That's an F for Tom Herman in recruiting. But you got to, I guess we're 5-2. I mean, if it's black and white, wins and losses, we're winning these games against bad Big 12 teams by 3 points. Okay, congrats, Tom Herman. Give you some credit for that. We're 5-2. Not horrible. It could be worse, but I mean, it's year 4. This is the season that Tom Herman proclaimed that he circled internally. 2020. This is when the stars align, and the Big 12 is really bad this year, and we look like a bad Big 12 team that's maybe a little bit better than the rest, still way worse than OU, and still nothing to play for big picture. I mean, Big 12 championship might be on the table, but we do not look like a Big 12 championship team at all. And if we are, it's mainly because the Big 12's down this year, being brutally honest, because
right.
the OUs of the last couple of years, even like the Oklahoma States, the TCUs, the Baylors, are way better than like the Big 12 right now. So Tom Herman may like get some praise because of the down Big 12, but D- for Tom Herman. What you got, Trevor, on Tom?
Yeah, I mean, all the same sentiments as you. Overall, pretty disappointing, especially just how how highly. Maybe he didn't quite hype up this team in the offseason, but I mean, there's a lot of hype around it just naturally, considering how talented this team is, how many returning starters there are, how many upperclassmen that had, such star potential on this team. And, and he brought in this coaching staff, and he had everything going for him. And then once we started slipping away, he played the excuse game instead of just owning up to it. It was, oh, COVID this, COVID that. Oh, we're he continues to say we're not a final product. We're changing, we're growing, we're every game. And that's you can say that, and like you can kind of believe that and get behind it, but typically with a football team, once you're halfway through a season, which we're beyond that point, that's the team that you're going to get for the rest of the season. You don't grow, over a couple games. That all happens in the off season. So it's all just kind of backfiring in his face. And yeah, COVID definitely, you can point to that and everything, but I mean, everyone in the world has had to face COVID, and all the college football teams have. And I mean, you look at Clemson, but they just lost. But you look at Alabama, you look at Florida, teams that really haven't lost a beat at all. I mean, even Ohio State in the Big Ten, that didn't have football for the longest time. They haven't missed a beat at all. So honestly, that whole thing, chalk it up. Dude's just making excuses at this point. He's trying to save his job. I get it, but yeah, D- definitely deserved. And you can argue for an F. I wouldn't disagree. But on to the next topic, Chris Ash. And these are in such random order, by the way. Y'all probably noticed that, but that's how we did it. Chris Ash, we're giving him an A-. Dude's really doing well with his defense, especially this last month, as Matt Meyer said. It started out a little bit rocky against Texas Tech and TCU. We were definitely saying that, hey, he's not quite fit for this job coming from the Big Ten, where offenses are significantly less complex than they are in the Big 12. But he's made adjustments, and his players, I think, have really kind of bought in and grown into his scheme. He seems to be pretty well respected by his team, which is always good to see. And he seems to be making the right play calls at the right times. That big blitz on 4th down against Oklahoma State definitely is a risky call, but turned out to work great, especially against a quarterback like Spencer Sanders versus a Joe Burrow last season. It's all a matter of context, and he seemed to be reading it really well. And my assumption would be, kind of on a different topic, but if Tom Herman lost to Kansas or something crazy and had to be fired mid-season, well, not mid-season, but during the season, all indications to me would be that Chris Ash would take over this starting coaching job, at least interim-wise, just based off of how well he's really come into this position. And if we do get Urban Meyer at some point, it would not shock me at all if he continued as DC, because you can tell that the team really likes him, and he's really good as a defensive coordinator, just in general, at least from what we've seen as of late.
Yeah, definitely. I love what I've seen with Chris Ash, mainly because you see the improvement week by week. You don't really see that at all on offense, or really under any Tom Herman teams. You don't see it week by week improvement, maybe 2018. But, yeah, he's been great. I really love that we're doing the 4-down front now, and we're getting better at it. Yeah. And it's really helping. Like, our run defense has always been good under Tom Herman, but it's really good this year. I mean, we held West Virginia under 50 yards rushing, which is like the lowest amount of yards rushing we've given up since 2005, and that team was legendary. So, yeah, I mean, Chris Ash is definitely earning his money, his paycheck now. I mean, he started off slow because I think acclimating to the Big 12 and like Texas Tech, Alan Bowman, players like that, it's a lot different than what he's seeing in the Big 10 East. So I don't blame him on that. But, at least he turned it around. I mean, he could be spiraling like our offense is right now. So got to give him credit for that. I think A- is fitting. And if he keeps up this trajectory and we get to play at OU again and we can stop OU defensively, that would be awesome. And he'd be working himself up to an A+. But, I love Chris Ash because you watch him on the sideline, that dude is passionately coaching. Tom Herman walks around blowing bubblegum, sunglasses on, fingers crossed, arms crossed. Chris Ash is out there like jumping, yelling, screaming, hugging on his players. Very passionate, and it's good to see, in contrast to Tom Herman. So, yeah, Chris Ash, great hire, and I love his media availability. He's a lot more easy to listen to than Tom Herman. So, yeah, Chris Ash, definitely a likable guy and a great hire.
Yeah. The good coaches adjust, man. That's what they say. And dudes adjusted after those first few rough games on the defensive side of the ball. It's been a complete adjustment. So that, I think, says it all in terms of who he is as a coach.
Definitely. And we'll stick on the defensive side of the ball now, Joseph Ossai, we're going to grade him out. We were talking about it, and we ended up giving him the A+. Joseph Ossai literally won us a game, maybe saved Tom Herman's job at Oklahoma State. So that alone warrants like at least an A. And also the fact that if you go on mock drafts this week, like the latest NFL mock drafts, he's nearly in all of them in the first round now. And like that wasn't even the case a month ago. He's really played himself up into the first round contention. And, Texas, we haven't had a first rounder since like Malcolm Brown back in, 2014? So just to see that and the development week by week, the leadership that he displays, his attitude, just like from the way he speaks and the respect he gets from the locker room, there's like really nothing you can like trash about him. I think he does everything the right way. And I wish we had more of Joseph Ossai's on the team. Wish we had 11 Joseph Ossai's out there. But, his stats, he doesn't have like a million sacks, but, he has some games where he's just like insane. And he's always in the right spot and playing with his hair on fire. So, yeah, I think Joseph Ossai has definitely earned the A+. What do you think, Trevor?
Agreed. To me, I think what I was a little hesitant to give an A+ because that's such high praise. But I think what kind of sold it when I thought about it more was just how big of a name he's made for himself at this point. And he is the star, probably more so than Sam Ehlinger at this point of this team. Everyone's talking about Ossai. And when you have, a star on you like he does right now and all that attention, the offense is going to direct all their attention to Joseph Ossai. Like you saw in the West Virginia game where he didn't quite have as big of a performance, and maybe that's why the rest of the defensive line did so well, is because they were drawing all their attention to Joseph Ossai. So I think that alone just speaks volumes that, he's taken on this, really big role he's had the big role on the team, all season, but that now that everyone's talking about him and watching, and he continues to show up in some capacity, not some capacity. He continues to show up game after game, even when people are scheming around him, I think is worthy of an A+ thing. And that he's really kind of, our defense has stepped it up these past few months, and there are more stars on this team. But when you look at like the first half of the season, prior to Oklahoma State, there really weren't many defensive players that you could point to and be like, oh yeah, he's looking really good. But Ossai, from the beginning of the season, everyone's like, yep, that's the guy. So yeah, he's been carrying this team in many regards and deserves the A+ honor. But next, we're shifting the offense again, the running back room. We're giving them a B- at the moment. This was actually kind of a tough one for us to grade because they've had some ups and downs. I think we went with B minus because they're really it's not a bad room. Like Keontae is a very serviceable back, as is Rashawn Johnson. No, neither of them are bad running backs by any stretch of the imagination. Bijan obviously has the greatest upside and is going through his freshman year, so of course, you should expect some hills and valleys along the way and some adjustment, and especially in this last game, he's really broken out and shown all that he can do, and he'll continue to improve, obviously. So yeah, I mean, they're getting the B grade. B minus we gave them just because the running game hasn't been as effective as past seasons or as we expected going into the season. I mean, you looked at it and it's like, oh, we got a three-headed monster here. We're going to really dominate and running the football, and we haven't done that until West Virginia. But all the previous games, our running game has been horrible. Well, not horrible, but not something to, really be excited about. So it was tough. It was tough to come up with the grade, but we feel like B minus is like a fair grade. They aren't quite a C to where, they're like barely passing because the offensive line, who's next up on the list, has a grade as well. And that's obviously part of the running game. But the backs alone, yeah, B minus we think is fair. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. They haven't been that bad, but, they just, like you said, the offensive line has really put them in bad spots at times. And also, they've been injured a lot. Roschon has been playing through injuries. Keontae has just been out. He's hurt now. And you know how Keontae is. He's on and off. Played great against Texas Tech. Then he had some fumbles against TCU and Oklahoma State that cost us, cost us the game probably. So just the lack of consistency from Keontae now he's hurt. So that kind of hurts the grade. But, Bijan's coming on so strong now. He's getting better and better each week. So, yeah, I think it's a fair grade, and I think there's definitely room for improvement. If Roschon can get even healthier and Bijan can keep his trajectory of just getting better each week, I think they can definitely play themselves up into like one of our best groups on the team. I mean, like before the season, like you said, a three-headed monster was all he talked about. So there's definitely potential there. And the O-line, if it keeps on getting better too, we'll just see even better running performances from Bijan and Roschon. So, yeah, B minus is a good spot for here. I mean, they're not the reason that our offense is horrible at all. Like they're not it. So, yeah, they've been good enough to win, I think. And speaking of the offense, we'll transition into offensive line here, just because it's just they're so reliant on each other, the running backs and offensive line. And Trevor and I graded them as a C minus. They kind of bumped their grade up a little bit last week because they put together the best game of the season against West Virginia. But you look back at the Oklahoma game, it's just more of the same as last year, just getting dominated in the trenches. And then and to be fair, Sam does like to sit in the pocket a long time and look at the pass rush now. So don't know where that came from, but he's doing it this year sometimes. But the right side, just the lack. I think the thing that stands out to me the most is the not necessarily the sacks, but the lack of holes that we're making in the run game, and more importantly, all the penalties that we had. I mean, we're kind of cutting them out or cutting them down over the last couple of weeks, but it was just ridiculous. Like throughout, like the early part and the mid part of the season, how bad our offensive line was. Just a lack of discipline from like Captain Derek Kerstetter and Cosme, and the right side, obviously Christian Jones and Okafor are always prone for penalties. That really hurt them, and it hurts our team. It kills drives. So, yeah, O-line C minus. It's Herb Hand is really, he's taken on a lot of water recently, so he's got to get them right in the last month of the season because, he's putting himself in a tough spot.
Yeah, I have no further comment on that. I think he hit all the nails on the head. Next, to round out the offense side of the ball, we got the wide receiver core. We're giving him a D. Not quite an F, but a D. Why is that? Because we don't have very consistent receivers. We get a fair number of drops. There seems to be something off between them and Sam. You wonder how much that is Sam, and you wonder how much that is them for maybe not running routes exactly or making plays. I mean, I think we touched on this earlier, but the only receiver that I really trust to make a play whenever he's out there and whenever he's getting targeted is Joshua Moore. But he's not he's not getting targeted very much, especially in the past 2 games. And he just has these flashes where it's just like he's gone one game, and then the next game he's like the star getting all these amazing catches and touchdowns, and it's very bizarre. It's very, very bizarre. I don't get it at all. Eagles has been a disappointment. I think he's worse than he was last season, and I did not expect him to regress. Jake Smith is okay, Whittington got hurt. That was a disappointment, obviously. Jared Wiley looks really good, but he still doesn't play very often, and he doesn't get targeted consistently. So what can you do when you got those things in your favor? And, what other receivers are coming to mind? Exactly that. It's very much a room by committee, and they just haven't been the strong suit of our team. Yeah, there's no way to sugarcoat it besides that. They haven't been the group that we can rely on whenever our offense has been struggling. And yeah, you've seen so many drop balls that have hit them right in the hands. And yeah, they get some overthrows, and yeah, they have to make plays. But every team that we faced this season, whether it was Tech, hell, even Baylor, Oklahoma, obviously, you see these receiving corps that are out here constantly, just at least once a game, you see a very impressive play by the receivers. And you're like, wow, that looked really good. Outside of Josh Moore on the rare occasion, I cannot say that every game there's a play by a receiver where I'm like, wow, they really had to work for that. So to me, that's a problem and reflective of their grade.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I think D honestly is being generous because they've been really bad and they've really hindered the offense, like we've been saying. Jake Smith over the last couple of weeks is a bright spot. He's getting healthy and getting more comfortable, which is good to see. He seems happier. So, I mean, he's made some plays, some touchdowns for us. So maybe we can keep that going. Brendan Eagles also had a touchdown, so that'd be cool too to keep these trends going. But yeah, they definitely need they need to get better fast because if we want to win the Big 12, we're not going to beat OU with our current receiving core doing what they're doing. So yeah, D's a fitting rank for them. Next up, we'll transition back to the defensive line. We came in with a B. The D line is so stacked because Oscar Giles has done a great job recruiting, but we're not world beaters when it comes to like sacks or anything like that. But we do affect quarterbacks pretty well, and we're deep there. I think, and we're great against the run. Most importantly, that's what we're known for under Tom Herman, and we're getting better and better each week. But I love what I've seen Taquan Graham. He's definitely had a good senior year, and Tavondre Sweat, Mora Ojimo, Keandre Coburn, they all contribute in their own ways, and it's all Joseph Ossai, the cherry on top. So I think B is a good spot. They could be a lot better, but they're definitely one of the strong suits of our defense.
Agreed. They're always maybe not so much making havoc, but I do feel like they definitely clog up the opposing team's O-line on a very consistent basis. And that all starts with Coburn in the middle, just taking on block after block, a monster, just absorbing all the other O-linemen and allowing the guys on the edge to make the plays. So, yeah, they're probably our strongest unit on the defensive side of the ball. That's what I think. Next, we got on the defense, we have the linebacking core. We gave them a C+. They've definitely improved these past 2 weeks, but I mean, at the beginning of the season, they were a blaring weakness on our defense. Texas Tech tore the core apart, and knew that it was a weakness and took it full advantage of it. You saw the same thing with who was it? TCU. Yeah, TCU and Oklahoma too. But since then, we've really stepped it up. Mitchell's been playing exponentially better. He's actually been really good. Very impressed with him. Overshown, obviously, really coming into the position very well, especially these past month, I would say, just has been very impressive and really popping off the screen. So it's exciting to see, such a big improvement. With all that said, because the start of the season was so bad, we have to give him a C+, just kind of when you average it out. But right now, if you were like judging by the past couple games, I'd give him like maybe a B+. Well, maybe not quite a B+, but I definitely would give him a B, B-. So would you agree with that? On that
Yeah,
grade?
definitely. Like you said, Jawan Mitchell and Overshown have been bright spots. Corey Jaquez has shown signs, but it's hard to rely on a walk-on to be a consistent good player for you. And then one thing I want to say before we move on the linebackers is we saw David Benda get in the game against West Virginia and make a couple plays. So that was great to see. I've heard a lot of hype around him. You always hear it, but he's finally starting to put it together on the field. So hopefully we see more of him. I think he's got good potential, a good speed at linebacker. So that could be another potential contributor. And same with Jalen Ford, another young guy with talent.
Yeah.
So we'll see. The linebackers are definitely a work in progress, but they're getting better. And so we'll go into secondary next. Trevor and I graded them as a C+. And secondary is weird, man. It's kind of bipolar. I mean, at times I feel like we're locked down, and then other times we're getting just shredded. But I will say we haven't had those breakdowns like where head scratching, like how is this guy so open? We haven't had those much under Chris Ash. Maybe a couple here and there, but I mean, it seems like we're always in the right spot. We still struggle a lot with playing the ball and not face guarding. But I mean, in modern day college football, it's really rare to see teams that are great at playing the ball. But still, we should definitely be better than what we are. But yeah, I mean, I like what we see, like Jalen Green interception last weekend against Oklahoma State. Jamison, he makes big plays too. But safeties, Chris Brown's been good at times. Stearns, we've already touched on, kind of disappointing. And then Foster, I mean, Foster's life with BJ Foster is crazy. I don't ever know what to expect. So
right.
They've been a good unit, but I mean, this was like, remember the 2018 defensive back haul, like the greatest of all time.
Right.
We expect better than what we have right now. So.
And I think that's why we gave them the grade that they have. Is like they haven't been horrible this season, but considering how experienced and talented they are and that they're literally pretty much all upperclassmen at this point, we were kind of it looked like the next, DBU type thing, much like the 05 Texas team. So, yeah, definitely a bit of a disappointment on that end. And then rounding it out on the team with special teams, we gave them a C+. It's been a tale of two seasons, it feels like, with the special teams. They started out looking absolutely horrible. Oklahoma was, a horrible special teams game just on both sides for receiving and punting. Kicking's been always somewhat consistent with Dicker, but the punting game was absolutely horrible for a while. That since has been fixed, and now we'll see what happens with Buchevsky out. So it's been a tidal wave. It's been up and down for sure. So the C+ really just kind of comes from averaging out an F with an A, which I feel like it's been like an A these past few games. In the beginning of the season, it was an obvious F. It was horrible, a glaring issue with our team. So yeah, very curious to see what happens for the rest of the team. But besides that, can't really report too much, I feel like, about special teams beyond that. Just that very much polar opposites halfway through the season.
Yeah, he nailed it. I don't need to expand on it anymore. He's been horrible at times and good at times. So
right.
C+ is a fair grade for that. And lastly, we'll wrap this up with recruiting. This is kind of just super important for just it's kind of recruiting translates to like the forecast of the future of your program the next 3 to 4 years. And Trevor and I rated it as an F. So that's not good, and that's the reason that Tom Herman, like at least for me, is just like I'm not the most confident in the trajectory of the program because
Yep.
recruiting is falling out. It seems like week by week. It starts off with Quinn Ewers decommitting, and he's going to go to Ohio State probably, which is just like that hurt. Like that's just unacceptable. That really sucks. So that, and then also Billy Bowman, like arguably our best player in the class. In my opinion, he's our best player in the class, or was. He just flipped to OU and then had some shade to say about our coaching staff. And honestly, what he said was truthful. So I don't know why Longhorn fans are so butthurt about it.
Right.
So yeah, Billy Bowman, and then like L.J. Johnson, all these guys that we were leading for, Shamar Turner, they're all going to go to A&M now likely. So just because we've been so incompetent, and then Tom Herman's job security is it seems like he's getting himself close to fired every week. So it's just hard to recruit to that, and that's all Tom Herman's fault. It's not the fans' fault at all. So y'all say what y'all want, fans. The recruits don't care. They might care a little bit, but that's not the reason that we're recruiting so poorly. And that's why everybody's like, you know what, a win's a win. Yeah, a win's a win if you look at just the record, but are the wins translating to recruits? Because that's what's more important in the big picture, like getting recruits, keep on building the program. Because if you want to just get like ugly wins and not recruit well with it, this is like the ceiling of what we're going to get with Tom Herman, because the talent trajectory is getting worse. And ever since 2018, it's kind of slowly dipping, and this year it's dipping big time. Mm-hmm. And 2022 is setting up to do that as well. So, I mean, if we're going to win these games narrowly, like this is kind of the peak we're going to get with Tom Herman, especially with the talent dropping. So
exactly.
So that's why I'm very frustrated and like anxious about life with Tom Herman and all that. So I'd love to see some good recruiting news come our way soon. Maybe we'll get some, but it just seems very bleak on the trail. And I can't blame the recruits for not wanting to come here with how we are currently. What do you think about recruiting, Trevor?
Yeah, I mean, you didn't even mention the Brockermeyer boys. That was that was the loss of all. I mean, obviously, Ewers is like it's like a death blow, but that was like a few shots to the gut, slow death, and then you could call the Ewers decommitment a shot to the head just to end the whole thing. But yeah, I mean, two legacy recruits that have always dreamed about playing at Texas and have every reason to come here, between their brother being on the team and both of their parents being Texas legacies and, living in the state of Texas. And instead they go to Alabama. And can you blame them? No. I mean, if they, considering how talented these guys are and they want to get to the league, go to the place that you're going to, you're going to compete for a conference title and a national title. And then B, get drafted. I mean, you haven't seen guys get drafted to the NFL really on this Texas team, and really since Mac's been here, to be honest. So that's not good. We're not competing consistently enough for conference titles. We're not winning consistently enough. We're not developing consistently. I mean, all the things are there to indicate that this is not the best place for recruits right now. The only reason I feel like we're competitive is our history, is our brand, is the fact that we're in Austin and that University of Texas is a fantastic school. Like if we were in Oklahoma State, we'd be horrible because there'd be no reason to come here. But because we got so many things in our favor, we're always going to land decent recruiting classes. We're always going to recruit pretty well just off of brand and appearance and all those tangibles alone. But yeah, we really need to step things up with recruiting. And I don't know if that's going to happen with this staff.
Yeah. I mean, Herman, that was the thing whenever he did like the whole staff reset, he definitely did not prioritize rainmaker recruiters and when he hired these new coaches. And he kind of bet on himself, bet on the team to go out there and win and let the winning take care of recruiting. and that has not happened, not even close.
And that
So
and that's been a sorry to interrupt, but that's been a consistent thing these past three coaches. You saw that with Mac towards the end of his career, um, and kind of throughout. The only thing about Mac is he did win, so he got good recruiting. You saw it with Charlie. You know, he never brought in any rainmakers because he was very steadfast in this belief that if you win, they will come. And then Tom Herman's been the same. So now it's just a question of, well, if we do move on from Herman and go after, I don't know, maybe a coach and maybe Urban Meyer, someone that, you know, brings in rainmakers and is a rainmaker himself. Maybe that'll turn things around.
yeah, someone with skins on the wall, someone with national championships, 3 of them. Yeah, I mean, it sucks, man, because it's kind of like we're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Like, it's just Tom Herman. We keep Tom Herman, we go win the Big 12, but I don't know how much I trust Tom Herman to sustain and build a championship level program here. Or
No.
you like lose to Kansas and get hopefully Urban Meyer, based on what I've read and all the research I've done. Seems like it's definitely on the table and there's mutual interest. So, I mean, yeah, it's just I don't people that want to like love on Tom Herman and just say he's infallible and all this stuff. Um, yeah, I mean he's 5-2. It's not horrible, but what do you want out of Texas? Are you comparing us to the Big 12 this year? Like we're third or second in the standings? Is that what you want to like? I'm
Right.
comparing us to Oklahoma. Heck, even A&M. They're out recruiting us and they're like way better than us on the field for the first time in a long time. So, um, I want Texas to get back to like the 2005 days, and Urban Meyer is clearly an upgrade. So it's not like we're saying Tom Herman is just a horrible coach. Like he's a solid, decent coach, but there's a surefire upgrade that has championship rings on the wall, and he will cure the recruiting woes that we're having. That I don't know how curable they are, honestly. With
I
Tom
don't think
Herman, I
they
don't
are.
know. I don't know like what our ceiling is now at recruiting. I don't think Tom Herman's going to go out there and land a top 5 class anytime
Well,
soon,
the
ever.
only way I could see this happening, and I definitely don't bet on it because it's a rarity in college football. But if you look at someone like Dabo Sweeney or like Gary Patterson, even if you become a coach that becomes really good at developing players and start winning, and those players start getting drafted, that's a way to regain your recruiting standing. But he hasn't shown that. He hasn't shown that at all. So, I mean, maybe with this year with Ossai getting drafted high, if that ends up happening, you know, great. But that route is also a very long route. And as Texas fans, we've been in the gutter for God so long, you know, a full decade, probably more at this point. If you go the Tom Herman route, I'm just saying it's going to be a while. You're going to have to wait it out. It's going to be a slow process. And honestly, I think most everyone at this point is just so damn impatient that we're willing, we're willing to just say, screw it, get Urban, which I feel like even last year, we probably wouldn't stoop to that level just because of the skeletons in his closet and stuff. Um, but we're done. We're so sick of losing. We're so sick of the same old crap year after year after year after year. Um, just know that, hey, if you stick with Herman, maybe you'll get winning eventually, and maybe he'll turn things around because I don't think he's a horrible coach, but don't expect anything great for a while, especially with the recruiting that's currently set up. The only way they're going to rebound is if they start winning and putting out NFL draft picks and developing well, which they haven't shown obviously yet. So,
Right. And yeah, that scenario could definitely happen, but I wouldn't bet on it. I would
it's
bet on
also exactly, it's unlikely
it's
that
unlikely.
doesn't typically happen.
Right. We kind of know what Tom Herman is, and he may be getting like worse. People are figuring him out, and recruits are figuring him out. So, yeah, my main thing is with the whole Urban and Tom Herman situation. If we keep Tom Herman and the scenario plays out that we keep Tom Herman this year, he does just enough because I don't expect him to win the Big 12. I think he can get us there unscathed at what is it, 8-2, and then we'll lose to OU,
Yeah.
and then we win a bowl game. Rah rah, the hype is back. He'll do just enough to keep his job, and
Right.
then next year we do the same thing. We lose to OU because OU returns everybody, and then we lose like an early game randomly to like I don't know Baylor, someone like that, and then he's gone. And by that time, Urban Meyer is not interested in Texas or has taken a new job. The
Yep.
2022 class is already ruined at that point, in addition to the 2021 class, which is currently already ruined right now. So then you have two classes you're set back. Urban's no longer a free agent. He's not even like in the market because he probably has a new job or he doesn't care about Texas anymore. His interest already died out, something like that.
Yep.
And then we end up like hiring another up and comer, like I don't know, Luke Fickle, something like that. And we're just doing the same thing over and over again. It's just like there's literally a solution right there, and you can try to stick to your guns and say Tom Herman's a decent coach. We need stability, and I understand that argument, but it's rare, and that makes sense in most argument, like in most situations. But this situation is very unique, and
It's
Urban
Urban.
Meyer,
Like,
yeah, the top five
absolutely.
coach all time. So I don't think you could just oh we're winning, like we're 5-2, we're winning close games, recruiting will get better one day. Like I don't understand that. I mean, yeah, if you don't have anybody available, but you got to go and court Urban, make him say no. And I know I trust CDC and our boosters that they seem very in tune for the first time in a long time from what I've read. And I bet they are doing their due diligence, really giving them a good push. But you got to make him say no a million times. And then at that point, then yeah, keep Herman another year, I guess, because there's no clear upgrades, I would say, at the moment. But yeah, you got to go all out for Urban and don't let Herman limping into a Big 12 championship with a horrible recruiting class, like keep us away from hiring a top 5 coach all time that would bring so much to University of Texas, so much winning and recruiting and just everything. So yeah, that's my biggest thing. I don't want us to make a mistake that could cost us another decade because like
Yeah.
I've been saying, like Oklahoma, Texas A&M in our own regions, not even like nationally, look better than us right now in every facet.
They're on
So,
the rise.
and yeah, and they're young too. They're all going to be back next year. So, or maybe not A&M, but yeah, it's very, the urgency is on in my opinion.
Yep.
And I think Urban is definitely the clear ticket out of this mess. I mean, it seemed like 2019 we did the same thing with Tom Herman. There was like turmoil in the locker room. He had lost the team apparently. People were going to transfer.
Yeah.
We just like gave up on a few games and it was looking horrible. We already had that moment in 2020. It's going to happen again in 2021 at some point. You know what it is. I mean, and recruiting is not even good anymore now. And yeah, it's just very frustrating for me as a diehard fan who now watches these games, and I don't feel the same as like I usually do with Texas. I just feel very like, I mean, we win, but I know it sounds like I'm complaining and I'm negative, and I understand that, but I don't know. It's just it's a unique situation because Urban Meyer is available, and it's just such an upgrade from what we currently have. So that's my main reason why my leash with Tom Herman is so incredibly short, and also just his personality in press conferences, condescending, know-it-all type of guy who's just like loads up like just a docket full of excuses every press conference. It's very nauseating to listen to over and over again, and a lot of fans are tired of it. So yeah, I would definitely hire Urban if I was in charge, but I mean, I doubt that happens. It's hard to trust Texas to do anything great right now. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
You hit all the nails on the head that I was going to go into. Yeah, I as a fan, especially these past few games, like in the Oklahoma State game and the West Virginia game, it's hard to it's not hard to root for your team. I mean, it's very easy to root for your team, but every time I watch these games, I don't feel scared at the end of the game. Like even the Oklahoma State game, like some people are like, "Oh, I'm so nervous. It's overtime." I had none of that because I'm like, hell, if we lose this, great. If we win, great. Like it's a win-win situation anyway. Because you want your team to win, but also if losing means potentially getting a Urban Meyer, a new coach, or a reason to go after them even further, all to you. So it's very bizarre, and I'm very certain that a lot of Texas fans that are very passionate about this team feel very similarly. And yeah, just again, want to hammer your last point home. The reason that we're so pro firing Tom Herman is because Urban Meyer is there. If he was not there, I don't think we'd be having this conversation. Would you agree, Myers? Like, I can't think of another coaching candidate that I would want, at least obviously. I mean, I mentioned in an episode way back that I'd love to have Kyle Shanahan out of the NFL, but that's not going to happen. Outside of him and Urban Meyer, can't think of anyone. I mean, like a Saban, sure, but Saban's really old and probably is going to retire here soon. But yeah, I mean, it's only because it's Urban that it needs to happen. Outside of that, yeah, probably keep Tom Herman. Not in a good spot, but it's better than starting over unless you got a guaranteed Rainmaker coming in, which you have the opportunity to get.
Exactly. Someone's going to hire Urban Meyer, and someone's going to hire him soon, within the next year or two.
He's not done. He's not. He clearly wants to coach one more team, and he wants to win a national championship with them because I don't think that's ever been done for a head coach to win 3 different national titles at 3 different schools. So he wants it, and he's not going to go to a cupcake school either. He's going to go to a powerhouse that has the ability to win a national championship, like a USC, maybe even a Notre Dame if Brian Kelly retires, but they seem to be on the up and up, and I don't see him leaving either. So it's going to happen at some point.
Yep, and it would suck to see him not at Texas. So
right.
Yeah, hope. I mean, fingers crossed. But I mean, that would, Tom Herman's going to find a way to win in the most unimpressive way possible, and just enough to survive. And then we'll be having the same combos next year, and recruiting will keep on getting worse. So we'll see. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Herman is the guy. Maybe we'll win 1 million national championships with him and get all the 5 stars in the world. But that seems unlikely. Yeah. Yes, sir.
All right. Well, that wraps up this show. Guessing that it was a pretty long one because I feel like we talked for a while about this, but hopefully you enjoyed it. I know that we both did. Expect to see Madrid back for the next show that we got coming up. Just continue to, follow us and drop us a like, leave us a comment, let us know your thoughts about the season thus far. Subscribe if you haven't already. And enjoy the bye week. A week off to not have to worry about Texas football and go do something fun. Enjoy this nice weather. With all that said, y'all take care. Welcome.